Thank you for joining us again on Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom. This is recording number 88. We had a couple of fun chats for the last 2 weeks over the holiday break, but this is recording number 88, and we're going to keep counting from there. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. We got a great group of people here to talk about slot cars of all kinds. Frank Peter, Chuck Gibke, Don Young, Alan, Dave, Steve, Henry, John, Luff, Jim, Dennis, Martin, DeJuan, Karsten, Graham, Mike, and other people. And as we like to do when we have new people on for the first time, we'll hear some slot car related personal history. Today we have two new viewers that are willing to share that with us. I'm going to start with Frank Peter. So go ahead and unmute yourself, sir, and tell us all about Frank Peter's slot car related history.
I'm Frank Peter van der Goor from the Netherlands. I'm a real car addict, I must say. My profession was race instructor at the circuit Zolder in Belgium. I was racing myself and teaching. Nowadays I'm busy with slot cars and model cars, and with slot cars more on the scenery side. That's more my thing. The slot cars, if they move, I'm happy. They have not break records or so. When they move, it's all right. The scenery is for me the most important thing. And yeah, as I said earlier, I've started this afternoon a new scenery project, a little one. I'm gonna try to build the timekeepers from Silverstone from the 60s, from the 50s and 1960s. It's a bit difficult to find pictures of the real building, but I found an advertisement, is that the right expression, from Corky Toys, and they had in the 60s a timekeeper's hut, and that's my how do you say, example to work on. I will show. Can I show it?
Why don't we'll save that. We'll do a show and tell after we finish.
Okay.
We'll definitely have you showing off all of your wonderful pictures and your work so far on that. When did you first start into slot cars?
My first slot car set I got when I was 10 years old, 1976. I'm from 1966. I'm 55 now. It's 1976. I got my first Fleischmann. Do you know that brand in the US, Fleischmann? Fleischmann, that's a great set. Hard. The track pieces are hard plastic. That's it.
Well, Frank Peter, they also had some really cool cars. They had cars that were sidewinders as well, if I remember. No?
Yeah, that's true, and they are really tough cars. But I've a lot of slot cars, Fly and Poly car, and all that, and sideways. But I'm a bit careful with those cars. I run the cars on the track, but real racing I do with Fleischmann. They are made from concrete.
They made a beautiful Alpha T33 Periscopo, as I recall.
Yeah, that's
really,
right.
really nice little model.
That's also my favorite Fleischmann. If my house is on fire, that's the only car I will take. That's a beautiful car.
Thank you very much for sharing your history with us, Frank Peter.
My pleasure.
Definitely look at your projects in a little bit. Before we get to that, let's hear from Karsten Grinneman. If I didn't totally ruin your last name, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about your slot car history, take it away.
You nailed it quite good. I'm from Denmark. I raced in the early 70s in a club in Copenhagen. And then, we all grow up and you got a wife and time goes on. So 25 years later, someone invented the internet, and suddenly there were some. There was a club with some people having created a racetrack, and I wondered, well, maybe I should go and talk to them to see if they understood what real slot car racing was like. And I went to this club, and to my amazement, this is 25 years later than when I started. To my amazement, it was all my old pals racing. So from day one on this reunion, it was sort of, "Hi, Steen, how are you doing? Should we go do some racing?" And I picked it up, and then in my second spell here, now I've been racing 25 years more. I'm a computer expert at work, or was, because I recently retired. And I was very unhappy with the lab counting system that we have, which was the SRT, the old IBM lab computer system. And I thought, I can do better than that. So I created my own lab counting system. And some of my pals saw that, and they bought one for, can you make me a system for our track and so on. And to this day, maybe I have created some 300 or 400 Lapmaster systems and been selling all around the world. So,
so
it took off from there.
You're the creator of Lapmaster?
Yes.
Very cool. Glad to have you.
That's why I said he was so important.
Well, somebody's going to pick your brain at some point, so definitely glad to have you on it.
Okay, but I've been working with computers, and at work we did a lot of Zoom meetings with COVID, and then I saw this thread and said, oh, well, I need to see what's going on here. So here I am.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming. And anytime you have any input, by all means, unmute and provide your input. I'm sure we'd appreciate it.
Sure.
For those guys who don't know Lapmaster, it's probably the go-to system for every major international event. Certainly for guys who race what Carsten would call proper slot cars, meaning stuff built from steel with Lexan bodies, but all of the ISRA, ISRA, International Slot Racing Association, all those racers use his system. Most commercial tracks nowadays use his system, and it's very, very good.
Thank you.
Well, I'm honored to have him here, and hopefully he can come back on a regular basis. If not, then we're glad to have you.
Oh, sure. I already like this.
Awesome. So the next thing, I don't see any other people who have not already given us introduction. I think Scott's been on before, haven't you, Mr. McPhee? Once or twice. Yeah. Okay. So without further ado, let's hit on show and tell. And Mr. Frank Peter is raring to go with his show and tell. So I'm going to let you unmute and take it away, Mr. Frank Peter, sir.
Okay. I'll show you my project. I started this afternoon. The timekeepers.
All right, looking good.
This is the page from the Corky catalog I mentioned, and this is the building. Well, I couldn't find pictures of the real building. That's very strange. You should thought that's a famous circuit, but I couldn't find pictures. Only this drawing in the catalog. This is the box from the kit, and I've made a few simple drawings and 1/32. And this is the base from Styrodur foam. And this is fiberboard. And yeah, I'm scribing the bricks. That's a hell of a job.
You literally built this brick by brick.
Yeah, that's yeah, and it's very labor intensive. You can't make any mistakes, but you can't. Yeah, that's very difficult to repair. It's it's nerve-wracking.
So what's the material you are using?
The material, Styrodur foam. That's is insulation foam in the building industry.
Yeah.
But you can also make molds from that material. It's very easy to use.
Looks good.
Thank you.
It's time to get 3D, I think, because it's a lot of work.
This is a lot of work, yeah. And this is only a small building.
Nice, very nice.
Oh, that's were the pictures.
Excellent.
Okay, that's what. Next time I'll show you more, hopefully.
Awesome. So we're going to have weekly updates on that one, I hope.
I will try. I will do my best. Okay.
So we do toggle between times. So next week will be much later, which might not be convenient for you. So maybe every other week, which would be fine by me.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. And
My pleasure.
Graham has his hand up. What would you like to share today, Graham?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, good to go.
Excellent. Right, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Right, I've only just turned on, I haven't even sorted my pictures out yet, so I'm just going to run through 4 or 5. Let's get the pictures up first, and then we'll open up.
While we're waiting for your pictures to come up, everybody, if you want to show and tell something, raise your electronic hand by clicking more or reactions down at the bottom of the screen, and we'll definitely remember to call on you.
That's not what I meant. Oh, what is always happening to me? Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, right. We can see from the last time I spoke, I think everyone just see like a half wooden track. My screen keeps disappearing. You can all see that okay, yeah?
Yeah, we're looking at the hairpin with blue walls.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously it's been a while, so been busy, lots going on in my life, as you can imagine, same as everyone else with the chaos we're all living through. Yeah, so like I say, I painted lines. I was going to hand paint some, but I've ended up having to do masking tape around the whole track for the red and the yellow lanes and stuff. Obviously painted it and doing everything, but I'm getting there slowly. I'm hoping to have everything done by the end of the month. So let's see if we can go to the next picture. Yeah, as you'll see in the background, newspaper, masking tape and chaos.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Couldn't get hold of a braid roller anywhere in the time that I needed one. So I found an old wallpaper roller and murdered it. So has anyone else got any recommendations, something I could get if I can't get hold of the real thing, or will that do? I mean, it's worked on the test piece.
I mean, as long as it works, if you can't get a hold of the bespoke rollers, then that looks like it should work just fine.
I don't know that you even need a roller. I think I've used a piece of wood that fits down at 3/4 of an inch wide, and just rounded all the edges off and rubbed the braid down. Yeah. I presume you're going to use braid that has double-sided tape on the back?
No, I bought some. Was it 3M all the stuff? I spoke to a guy, Mike, who runs the Presto Park Club in Norfolk.
Oh yeah, Mike Harvey.
Yeah, they're lovely bloke. I asked him a few questions. This was way back when, before I knew about Worldwide Slot Car Chat, and he told me what he used, and I bought the same stuff, and it is so sticky. It's difficult to get off your hands when you're trying to put it down.
But it's a tape that you put down.
No, it's a contact adhesive.
Oh, you're doing it the hard way. Okay.
Oh, no, the stuff what Mike said. What is it? It is double-sided tape, but it is so sticky. Yeah, it really works. Anyway, I'll see if I can find a picture of it.
Okay, so it's the 3M VHB.
It's just not pre-applied to the. It's just not pre-applied to the braid. It's
So the trick is when you're doing that, Graham, is apply it to the braid. Don't try and apply it to the track.
Really?
Particularly where you're going to lay braid around the corners, because the backing of the tape, of the double-sided tape, doesn't bend when you try to go around a corner. So it's not very easy to lay the double-sided tape into the recess of the track around a turn. You can do the double-sided tape into the recess down the straight sections very easily. But the better idea then is to, when you get to doing a curved section, is to stretch the tape out, stretch the braid out straight, clean it with some, get rid of the oils and things on it with some cellulose thinners or lacquer thinners. Make sure it's dry, and then apply the tape, the double-sided tape, to the braid first. Rub it down, and then as you lay it into the slot, you can pull the backing off and lay the braid down into the slot, and then you can get it down without any stretching, and you can be careful to put it exactly where you want it. But the double-sided tape without its backing bends just as easily as the braid does. So it makes it much easier around the turns to do it that way.
That's what I love about this. You can come on, and I said before, people will tell you stuff you wouldn't have even dreamed of, and all of a sudden, wow, boom, I'm there. I wouldn't have thought of that. So that is absolutely fantastic. And
you're benefiting from all of our own mistakes, right? Because the first time I did it, I put all the tape down into the slot, and as you bend it around, the backing tape either breaks or it starts to peel away from the double-sided tape, and then you can't rub it down properly while it's in the slot. So it's much easier for curved sections to put the braid on, to put the tape onto the braid first.
I mean, I did do one section with it with a bend. What was that? Would have been? That would have been a 6-foot radius bend. And I'm going to get it to go okay on there. But as you say, I've got a couple of, they're not hairpins, but they're not far up in there. So for that, I think I will come unstuck. So thank you very much for that. I don't know.
You're welcome.
You can see on the picture there how much braid I've got.
Yeah.
It's about 1,500 foot, but I figured I'll get a bit extra because I'm going to use 1,200 for the track. And if I need to make any adjustments, fixes or anything, I'd rather have from the same spot on the same batch. So
always get more than you think you need.
Yep. Well,
how are you going to lay it where you drop? Okay. I think you've just answered my question.
I was just going to move on to the next bit. Again, that's just an old Scalextric GT40, and I think, is there a Mini next? Yeah. And again, that was just on a little test piece just to try out, and it seems to sit down. I've got it about, I'm trying to remember this it's probably about half or just a fraction over 0.5 millimeter below the track surface. Is that okay?
Yeah, it may be a little much actually, but it's okay. 0.5 millimeter, that's 20 thousandths in real dimensions. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think now, when I've done it on this test piece, since I've done the colors on the lanes, obviously that's built up another layer of paint, sort of like in most cases, either a thick layer or 2 layers where I've sprayed it. So I'm hoping that will lift it, hopefully enough just to bring it up so it's just under level with the track.
Yeah, you want it always just under level. You don't want to have it level or above level. You want it just under level, and the closer to the surface, the better. But that sounds fine. 20 thousandths with 2 coats of paint will be great. Wow, look at that, man!
Dennis is jealous.
Obviously, that's the last picture I took of when it was all together.
Mhm.
Obviously, before pulling it all apart and starting all the other little bits and the touch-ups. And obviously, there's a few bits where I've run over with the red paint on the lane. That's some have to do touch-ups, but hopefully, the back of the sort of job has been broken now. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
When
much
you painted the surface, did you get that paint all the way down into the slots as well?
Not down into the actual slot bit itself. No, should I have done?
I'm just wondering. It is difficult, but it obviously it makes the slot last a lot longer. But with 1/32 scale cars, it's not that much of a problem.
But you
Yeah.
painted the recess in color, right?
Yep. No, and I made sure the little collar on the recess where it meets the track surface, I made sure I very lightly get rounded that off slightly, because I remember I think Steve Ogle said something about it will chew the tires up when it's brand new, or unless I misheard him.
It's looking really good.
Yeah, but yeah, that's me, folks.
You're going to lose a couple of guides on the first couple of laps, because there are paints and stuff in the groove that you do not expect. So, but that will go away pretty quickly. You can use a fill tip paint thing to paint the groove if you want to. But I did it on my track, but that was part of the coloring of the groove.
That's the thing. Like I said, the color inside of it is done. What I am going to do is get a little piece of sandpaper, fold it over a couple of times, so it's just. So I mean, it's an 1/8 of an inch routed slot that I put in there, so it'll be just under an 1/8. And I am going to run that through there.
Yeah.
And again, I'll go round. Well, I've got a little piece of wire that fits in there perfectly. And I'll go around and hoover. And again, I will check for any objects or bits that might be sticking out that might need a little bit of work done on them. So, and unless anyone can think of anything else I may need to do or little nuances.
When you did,
one of the things you can do when you first start running the track, use a car that's got as deep and as wide a guide as you have, and basically wrap the blade of the guide with a layer of clear strapping tape, both sides. And then run it around, and then that will protect the guide. Because as Carsten was saying, sometimes you get these little bits, and if you're running really fast, you can either wear away the guide with the abrasion of the MDF, or you could break it if you hit something.
Yeah, well,
but with 1/32 scale cars, it doesn't generally happen too badly.
Yeah.
When you did the coloring for the slots, did you put, when you did the red, white, you know, the coloring there, did that go into the slot, or did you try to keep it out of the slot?
Where I'd use a spray can, I've had to use a spray can for the red and yellow lanes, because to get the color I wanted, that was the only way I could get them colors in a spray can. The green and the blue, obviously the blue's from the outer barrier of the track, and the green was just some old paint I had from a track I painted with my son years ago. So about 20 years old, but it's still good in the can. So that's what I used. So yes, some of the paint will have obviously oozed into the actual slot bit where the guide's going to go. So I'm going to have to go around with sandpaper and hand nib it all out, I guess.
Yeah, spray paint probably won't be that big of a deal, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like you already have those things thought of and planned for.
But what a track! I'm so jealous.
I know that looks great.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful track.
Yeah.
I can tell you from the hours I've put in on this, Dennis, someone would have to pay me a huge financial, life-changing sum of money to build another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can see it's a labor of love. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, but road trip time. I mean, well, I'd love to be there and race and drive on that.
Well, look, if any of you guys ever find yourself in England or whatever for any reason, just get hold of me somehow. I'm obviously in the forums.
Yeah, whereabouts are you?
I'm in Suffolk in England. It's like on the east coast, east of London. So yeah, I'm right there. My nearest major town that people are aware of is Ipswich.
Okay.
So well, I can more or less look at the water out of my house, so I'm that close to the sea.
Oh, nice.
Are you going to start your own little slot car club?
Kind of, yeah. I've kind of done this just for me and a few close friends who are sort of into slot car racing, not as much as me, and sort of like my kids and grandkids, really, because I'm going to let them do all the scenery in the middle. I'm going to put obviously some boards down, and I've got some little men, some trees. You know, let the grandkids have a bit of fun with it as well. So
Good enough. Yeah, perfect.
yeah, at some point I may do that, but at the moment it's going to remain private, just for me and some of these sort of work friends. You know, just believe me, there'll be enough people. It'll be like a private but openly private club.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
You got any other pictures you wanted to share?
No, that's me done, guys. Thank you very much.
I'll go ahead and
Oh,
stop
one.
here for you. And Karsten, did you have any commentary or questions for Graham, or did you have something you wanted to share yourself?
I wanted just to show my track because it's quite similar.
Cool.
Just very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So I built the 4-lane track as well, and I did it all myself. So I know exactly the kind of work that goes into doing that. So I'm jealous for it's a very nice track you have. I've recently moved and I had to give away this track, and now I'm slowly starting to build another. So just quick.
That's a lovely track. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's nice. I love that big sweeper over the top.
Yeah, that was actually quite good because it took some technique to do that quickly, and because you have to brake in a corner, and that makes it difficult. But yeah, but it's gone. I don't have it anymore, so I'm in the process of building something new.
Okay. Well, we look forward to you showing us your project on your new track at some point. Perfect. All right, John, your turn.
But this is going to not take too long, but you guys have seen this before, but I just want to show again the type of artistry Frank Peter just you know, it makes it's art. And you guys have seen this before, because I'm honored to be the custodian of this absolutely beautiful piece of scenery.
I remember you getting that.
Yeah, and that's what the end result will be, although even better now, I'm sure. But you can see that, like, look at the thought and the resourcefulness. Like, what I love is that this is from a box of biscuits.
Yep.
Cookies. Huh?
Yeah, cookie, exactly. Yeah. So I was trying to be more European. Sorry.
Oh, no, that doesn't matter, John. I understand you.
But look at I mean, look at the detail in here. I mean, there's interior done, lighting, the curtain.
The flower pot. That's the back end of a marker.
Well, that's the back end of a marker.
Yeah. And the other bit of I cut that off, and the other bit I used on my Le Mans layout to make a fire hydrant.
Oh,
Make the
wow.
fire hydrant from the point of a marker, the back end. That piece with the edge, that's the flower pot, and the other half is on top of the point of the marker. I can show a picture later on if you want of that fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Here, yeah, you go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing. Show us the fire hydrant, please. Yeah.
Okay.
This is awesome.
The ingenuity of it is amazing.
Let's see. I have to go to my.
We'll need you to put a link in the chat so that I can put that in the video description later.
Yeah, and Frank Peter's YouTube channel, which is really good as well.
By all means, if you know the links, put them in the chat, and I'll make sure to put them in.
Oh, look at that!
It's the fire. the
Oh,
point
man.
of a marker, this,
Yeah.
this piece is the other half of John's flower pot. This is a screw
Yeah.
and a washer, and these parts are from a disposable lighter.
Wow.
I couldn't find a fire hydrant, so I made my own.
I can just say, this reminds me, this is like something out of the A-Team. You've managed to make something out of nothing and something good. This is brilliant.
I really liked it. Everyday material, other people that throw it away, I use it.
We call him also MacGyver.
MacGyver out there.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, John.
No, anytime you want to share. That's what this is all about.
John was showing us pictures.
Good stuff. All right, Mr. Gibkey, you got your hand up. Take it away.
Okay, so are you gonna let me show some non-permanent layouts
If
then?
you want to.
Sure. Okay, let me see if I can share this again.
All right. There we go.
Okay, so 2 years ago on New Year's Day, we set up a couple of layouts at our church's gymnasium and had a couple of people play around with them. And so last year, COVID kind of got rid of that. So I thought this year we'd try it again, but instead of actually having people come and build the layouts right then, I'd spend a couple of days and have some layouts ready before everybody got there. Well, there wasn't too many people that showed up, but I had a lot of fun building layouts. So this is a classic Revell Enduro layout with the, I should have put my Revell cars on it, but I didn't, I forgot to do that. So that one was running with the Revell transformer. This one is a slightly extended Laguna Seca layout that they have in their box. I had extra table space, so I figured, well, I'd add a couple more straights and stretch it out a little bit. That's what it's supposed to look like right there. It's a little bit more compact, but the far end is stretched out a little bit. But that's the same thing that you normally have. I did add some extra inside and outside aprons though, so kind of give it a chance for if there was supposed to be a guy coming that had some 124 scale cars that he wanted to try out. So I was going to give him every chance to try those. That's some of the stuff that I brought with me. I had a selection of older pistol grip controllers, and I brought those, and I have some more as well. Then they're mostly Parma and Rusket controllers. And then I also brought some, these are actually new. I bought these because I knew at least one grandkid was coming, so I got some Pixar cars to run, and then also a couple of Mario Kart. Those last 6 are all 143rd Carrera, but they got a lot of use, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is another layout that I got mainly for testing, so you could test controllers and cars. It's an extended 8 with a 21-inch radius track and all the extra aprons so that a 1/24th scale car should be able to run on that. This is my little redneck control box adapter with 2 controllers on it. That's a little bit closer look at it. I built these so I could take Cox controllers or the standard wiring from most of the 3-wire controllers that are available today. Another look at the layout. A little bit. That's one view of the second day that I worked. I spent 2 days putting all these layouts up, and brought some extra cars on the actual day we're going to run. Those are some 1/24th scale there. Had different cars. Most of mine are monogram and Revell, along with the Carrera Pixar cars. And then I had 2 very old Revell Indy cars. It comes with their Indy Grand Prix set, and they were kind of fun to run because the tires, it was the original original tires on those. One of them, the gray one, had a flat spot on the on one of the tires, so it would make a thumping noise as it went around the track. Otherwise, the tracks were pretty much slick and hard, and so they were kind of like driving on ice. This is a Revell Atlantica set with extra aprons added. Before I added the aprons, it was working fine. After I added the aprons, I had dead spots and a bunch of trouble. So I finally gave up and then came back the next day and took it all apart and got it running again. I think Dewan knows about these.
Yes.
And this is
Okay,
it. It also
great.
has extra aprons. I'm having trouble hearing him. What is he?
He was talking on the phone, so I muted him.
Ah, okay. And this is another layout. It's a modification of a Revell Americana 2-lane layout. I wanted to make it so that the lane lengths were closer to being the same. I'll show you a second what it's supposed to have been, but it's a 54-foot track, and this was the last one that I put together, and I was so beat that I didn't bother to put any aprons on it, just let it go with the 1/32 cars, and that seemed to work just fine. This is another shot of it. The one on the left there is the way it's laid out in Americana's the little layout sheet that comes with the set, and then the one on the right is the one that I ended up doing. That tool in the front is a pair of Dewan's tweezers that he uses and came up with to squeeze the track together. That came in quite handy for some of these things that just wouldn't quite go together. And so it was well worth learning and swapping stuff with Dewan to get a copy of that. I have a friend that was very fond of his 1/24 scale Lola T70 back in the 60s. And so I had to show him that I had 4 of them in 1/32. This is a granddad and his grandson playing on that Americana 2-lane track with the 2 Mario Kart, Luigi and Mario. They had a great time with that. The little grandson, he's 5 years old. He had a good time with running those around with Grandpa. And then we had a couple other grandparents with grandkids show up, and they liked the little Mario Kart cars as well. So those got a lot of use on New Year's Day. And then here's Willie and Henry playing around with different cars on the figure 8. Willie got a kick out of playing with that silver car because it was a challenge to run around the track. The Henry, his grandson, liked trying a bunch of different cars. He would go and pick up another one and try it on the different tracks. He'd switch from layout to layout with different cars, having a good time. And I have a couple videos of this. I'm going to try to make a website addition to my website, and so I'll have some of that stuff available. I know it doesn't play well on this system. And the other 2 kids that were playing with on the other track, this is their grandparents, and so they got a chance to play around on their own.
Sorry to interrupt, Charles, but look at that picture. Those grandparents are acting like kids. They're having a ball.
They are. Now this is after I fixed the track and I ended up not putting the aprons back on, but again, it runs just fine with the 1/32 cars. And back again with Grandpa and grandson playing with the Mario Kart. And actually he would ask me to count down so they could do a little quick 5-lap race. And that was fun. You could hear him squealing and laughing at seeing the cars go around. There they are again. Now here's what was helpful to me. And ages ago when I first started, Dewan mentioned using these clips. Little gray and white squares that are on there are some clips that I 3D printed that holds the track together, particularly on the ones that are too loose and that any kind of motion will cause them to separate. So I was able to use these to keep the track together. The ones that are stuck together and you have to use Dewan's tweezers to squeeze tight enough to make contact, you don't need these because they ain't coming apart. but the ones that are loose need the clips. And this is one of my redneck jumper connectors. I've got it so that I know you may have seen them on the other track, some red and black wires. And I have a similar one of these farther down the track that I can run the power control over to, so that I don't lose power, particularly on a 54-foot lap. It's
Sorry to
wired.
interrupt, Charles, that's a great idea, especially if you're doing different layouts.
Yeah. And so particularly the bigger ones, and if you have like a dead spot or something that just won't work, you can put one of these in there and wire some power over. Now, the thing that it took me a while to figure this out, but if you notice the red and white wires, the red wire is always in the middle of the track, or the inside thing, so that I can connect it either way with the so it doesn't matter which way it's pointed, it's always going to have the correct connection to the master track. Or with this type of thing, if I have the 4 connections on just a plain straight track, I can kind of cascade them along at different points in the track. So that's one of the things that I've done to put these together on the floor. Since I know they're not going to be permanent, I'm going to have to move them around and build them again.
What was the connector on the end of those?
It is a standard, I think it's a 2.1, 2.5 power connector. It's real standard for stuff like
they call it DC barrel plugs or
yeah,
yeah,
right, yeah,
yes, okay, good.
Yeah. So it's just a standard power connector. It won't take like 20 amps or something like that, but it's I think it's good enough for like a slot car 2-3 amp stuff. And this is what I ended up loading in my truck a couple of times to get there. I had more than enough stuff, but I'm glad I brought what I had, because there was some cases where I was looking through the boxes trying to find a particular piece that I needed. And that's it.
Did you have anybody saying how much for this layout? I'll take it home with me right now.
No, nobody did that. I did have, and I didn't show it, but I had bought a while ago. I bought a Carrera 143rd Pixar set with 2 of the Lightning McQueen and another one, and I had never taken it out, but I loaned it to Grandpa and grandson to take home, since his grandson was going to be there for a few more days. And so he did send me a picture showing that he had set it up on his ping pong table, and he and the grandson were playing with it. So yes, somebody did go home with a layout, but not one of the Revell ones.
Awesome. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I like to see. That's fantastic.
It was great fun. I mean, there wasn't very many people that took advantage of it, but I think I got a couple years worth of setting up layouts and just, doing something with it and set them down and testing them and stuff. It was good fun.
Yeah.
And the best part is you look at every one of those photos and everybody has this big smile across their face. Yeah. That's the best part.
Good stuff. Thanks for sharing, Chuck. I very much appreciate it. We still got show and tell open. And does anybody have anything else they'd like to show and or tell? If so, raise your virtual hand or shake and wave your real hand. Otherwise, we will go to the next topic. All right, Mr. Grinneman, what would you like to show and share? Oh,
I just wanted to show this car. It was inspiration. You showed us these lovely 132 scale plastic tracks. And here in Denmark, it's been very popular to work with they are called BRM.
Yeah.
They are actually 124 scale, but they run quite well on Scalextric and other plastic tracks as well. And for us geezers that have a little bit hard seeing the small cars, these are actually quite fun. They are very challenging to race, but they are very equal. So we race this at the club that I am a member of, and we have very close races. And there's a number of different, these are 70s saloon cars. So there's a small series with the Mini and Fiat Abarth and NSU, very small cars. It's not the big Ferraris and stuff like that, but they're fun. And they actually have a hinge in the back axle, so that you have a camber on the tires. That is what makes them very difficult to run. But
The BRM.
when you're experienced, you sort of like the challenge anyway. So I just mentioned that they run quite good on plastic tracks.
Well, you can't get away without showing us that dynamometer or test bed
Oh, yeah,
that you put
you
on
got-
it. That is cool. Like, we got to see that, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that you had the car sitting
You cannot see the camper maybe, but I need something flat. 1 second. The tires are actually not touching on the outer edge, only on the
Yeah, only on the inner edge. Yeah,
on
they
the
have
inner
about
edge.
a 5-degree camber on them.
Yeah, and then when you go through the corner, then the car tilts slightly, and then you have the full width of the track. But it's this. Let me see if I can get it in focus. It's this hinge in the middle of the back axle.
Universal joint.
Can you tell us more about the platform that you were holding the car on with the wheels and everything? Yeah,
That's a test field that one of my fellow is making. So you can run the cars and you can see if you have if the tires are not all through, then it will be all jumping, and you can actually see does it touch on all the wheels and so on. And there's a rubber band connecting back axle to front axle, so that the front wheels will turn as well when you apply power to it. And it has 2 stances because we have shorter cars and longer cars, so you can sort of pick the Fiat Abarth, of course, is the short car, but there are also something like a Ford Escort and stuff like that. They are slightly longer, and then you need to have the reverse side of this test bench. It's not expensive. It's quite simple. It's my friend has the Slotworld .dk, and I think he's selling them there as well. But he made them.
That's
Very
pretty
cool. I love it.
I'll bet you even Petrucci doesn't have one of those.
I don't know. Don't challenge him. If he doesn't, he's going to go get one right away. That's for sure.
It's from the BRM series, and they're very popular in Holland also. We race them a lot, and I heard of it. There's a rumor we're gonna make 132 scales now.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
But that's not interesting.
You know how
For you,
small they're going to be. Yeah.
That's true. Well, Henry, you've got your hand up, I assume, for something else. What did you want to show or tell?
Yeah, the last time we showed
The beginning project of the test bench.
Mhm.
And we're now getting to the end of the phase. But China is not so quickly at the moment and to get some products.
Yeah.
And it will be the European style, so 25% loss of greatness and economic. And it works very well at the moment. I first started with Arduino Unos, and then today I installed the Arduino Nanos. They're a lot smaller, but they could have 12 volts, but they didn't.
Cool.
So I have to do a step-down motor in it. So the Arduino works about 5 volts.
Yeah.
But 12 volts he didn't like because when I started up, it fired.
Okay.
So, and this
So-
one
so-
will be the American version.
Yeah.
Blue, white, and red, of course, and the State of Liberty in it.
I thought that's what that was.
I'm very curious. It has a built-in power supply, I assume.
Sorry.
And what functions does it have? A power supply and a rev counter or something?
And let's fetch 1 moment, please.
You know, you could print that out in red and white and add a hockey stick and sell it to Canada.
The colors are the same. It's a DC 12 volt external.
Okay.
So you can put between 3 volts and 12 volts.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
but you had a display on it, so is it measuring the
RPMs,
yeah?
the how do you call it, feet per second, and miles per hour, and the voltage.
Okay.
So there are 4 different marks on the screen.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't think you want to know more of your car.
Step up. This part was just the mechanical rolling bed. So there's no power supply to it, and there's no measuring. It's very simple, but anyway, it's still a useful tool. Yours sounds very interesting, and I would like to learn more about it.
Yeah, we heard that. Yeah, you can't sell it almost anymore at this moment. So maybe it's a market for it.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
There's been a lot
That's
of interest. Anytime you post about it or talk about it, there's usually several people who say, "Awesome, I want to get one." So
Yeah, I had it on some rumors around the internet, and yeah, Spain is talking about it. Italian, French people, Belgium, Germany. So I think I can sell a few.
awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward.
You'll make tens of dollars.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Small fortune from a large fortune. All right. Thanks for showing us the progress on that, Henry. And does anybody else have anything they want to show and share before we move on to other things? Seeing none and hearing none, let's do Club Corner. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about or talk about that has happened or will be happening? I'll get the ball rolling. I went over, as I had mentioned on previous Zoom chats, I had a vacation in Leavenworth, which is very close to where Mr. Mike lives in Wenatchee. And while I was there for the week, I went over and spent an hour or two at Mike's track, and we raced both magnet cars and non-magnet cars. And I posted a video of some of his faster magnet cars on my YouTube. So if you look back a few days, you can see me and him zooming around his track with a couple of his really stuck down magnet cars. And
With ridiculous speed.
they were going quite fast.
Yes.
And and of course he took a special joy, I think, in letting me know later on that he had beaten my best time with the car that I had been driving. So I will never claim to be an excellent magnet racer, but it was still a lot of fun. You know, that particular video, both the cars were fairly well stuck down. Of course, he knew them better than me. The car that I was driving, I only had to let up a couple of times. As long as I let up properly on those 1 or 2 corners, I didn't carry too much speed through the next corners, and so I could pretty much pin it the whole time. I think his car was a little less forgiving than that, so he was actually having to drive his car a little bit more than I was having to drive my car. So me laughing at having caught up to him was not really much of an accomplishment given the car he was driving and the car that I was driving, but it was still a lot of fun.
But it looked like the magnets were really quite strong, Greg.
Yeah, of course.
Those cars were stuck down. I mean, they weren't heavy cars. They were still slotted cars. So, and obviously plenty of speed But
So
yeah,
that's why Northern California got snow. You actually tilted the axis of the Earth by with the magnets. That's good. That's good.
They were 400 to 600 grams of downforce.
Oh,
On the 6.
400 to 600 grams of down.
Yeah, the Chaparral had about a little less than 600,
That's the one.
and the McLaren had about 420 or 430, I think.
Wow.
You can drive them on the ceiling.
yeah.
Not really.
That's not
The-
downforce. That's a hydraulic press.
And they had
You will never know when it's get out of the corner then.
Sure you do, when it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, we had driven those cars for a good 15 or 20 minutes before I took that video. So I had already figured out where I needed to let up. And it took several crashes for me to figure out exactly where I have to let up and where I can go full speed. So yeah, you find out where the limit is when you reach the limit, and then you try not to cross that limit. Obviously with lower downforce cars, you're having to let up more often and sooner and whatnot. Those particular ones, those are stuck hard. I'm not going to give Mike any grief because that was a lot of fun. And I know people who run cars with 1,000 grams of magnetic downforce.
How long do their motors last and their gears?
Right.
The gear's not so bad. The motors, if you're using usually slotted or NSR motors, they last a long time. If you use the Predator motors, they get hot and don't last real long.
That's a kilo. Wait, hold on. That's a kilo.
Yeah. Together.
Yeah.
Holy crow.
So the thing that I forgot to mention is that was, we were racing in digital mode. Obviously I was in the same lane as him. So those were digital cars. Part of me doesn't like to point that out because a lot of people associate digital with magnet racing, which is totally not a direct association. But the more interesting thing was that those were high downforce magnet cars, which with hot motors, which is known for bursting, damaging
The chips, yeah.
Well, I forgot to ask what kind of chips were in those. I think they were the slotted 15s.
Nope. Scalextric's Revision H, the newer ones.
Okay, so the most recent DPR chips
Right.
all in there. Okay, so those are the more robust. If those had been early Scalextric chips, they'd have popped a long time ago, I'm sure.
But I have about 20 of them to show for it.
Yeah. Exactly. So good to know that those chips can handle the load.
Sure.
And like I said, we ran non-magnet cars and had a blast on both of his tracks, and it was a lot of fun. I wish I could have stayed longer, but had to go make dinner for the family and all that jazz. But anyways, had a great time. Next, I see Dennis with his hand up. What would you like to talk about, Dennis?
Excuse me. In Club Corner, just that Electric Dreams will be doing a full calendar of racing this year. Excuse me, just let me mute.
Planned out the whole year, did they?
They have laid out the whole year.
And Frank's
Frank's holding up the rule book. Yeah, there's a.
Hold that back,
you can,
Frank, while Dennis talks about it.
you can go to the Electric Dreams site, the website, and on the Electric Dreams website, there is a new link at the top of the website to take you to a thing called Races, and it will give you the calendar, and it'll give you the PDF, the link to download the PDF rulebook, and there it is. There was supposed to be a race coming Saturday, the first one in January, but unfortunately, with the way that Omicron is spreading down here at the moment, the decision was taken to stay out of it. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of classes, some of which are very much aimed at beginners or guys who like to run with magnets. Others are aimed at being effectively just a tuned up stock car. And a couple of others are aimed at, do what you like and pretty much unlimited. So I think there's going to be enough for most people to find something that's really something that they enjoy.
That's awesome. And I'll tell you what, that is, that book that Frank was holding up, I assume that's the PDF and Frank printed out the PDF.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is fancy. Somebody spent some time on that.
Oh yeah. You won't believe these days how Marco Carvalho and his buddy Lucas, two young Brazilian guys who live here. Marco is the store manager now at Electric Dreams, and he has done just an amazing job of raising that whole thing from basically just a warehouse with a web presence into something that is really not only a good slot car store, but a nice place to visit. Jim will tell you, it's really, really nice to go there these days. The place is clean and tidy and friendly, and the track is great. And so, yeah, he's done a wonderful job.
Hundreds of cars on display, some for sale, some vintage. The museum, the LA Slot Car Museum, has put a few vintage cars in there on display. Scott Bader, who's an avid race car driver, has a couple pieces of old cars that he wrecked and or from other cars. There's a NASCAR there, a Herbie. It's really a nice place.
Well, not even a Herbie, the Herbie.
Oh, the Herbie from the movie? Okay.
The Herbie from the movie.
That I wasn't sure of.
And the Days of Thunder mellow yellow car from the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
The rules are very comprehensive and very well done.
You got to read them, Jim?
Yes, I'm surprised you could hold the rules up in one hand. They're quite long, but very well done.
About 25 pages or so. There's 10 classes altogether. What's interesting, and it'll be interesting to do it, is Marco is putting a Can-Am Light and a Can-Am Pro classes, and they're going to run at the same time. So that's going to be interesting, as well as the GTE Pro and GTE Light. And it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, looking forward to the Can-Am and the GTE Pro.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be great classes to run. I need to talk to him a little bit more about the whole deal about chassis taping, but we'll work on that one still.
I don't know. I think you three guys are headed towards who's going to be the Roger Penske of Electric Dreams by reading those rules, man.
Yeah, I've got some things reading the rules. I've got some things in mind that we won't talk about just yet. But
awesome.
Now, Jim.
Good to hear that Electric Dreams is continuing at that, and it sounds like they've got a good variety of things for people of all interests.
Yeah, I think so, and obviously a lot of it is aimed at promoting the stuff that we sell there.
Sure, you sell a variety,
but we sell most things, so you're going to get most of it there. Yeah, so as soon as the pandemic allows, that'll be back on the way. The track is not open for practice or use at the moment at all. The store is still open, but we've closed down the track because of Thursdays was becoming like Thursday there was becoming like an old farts reunion. I mean, we would have sometimes about a dozen guys all hanging around, talking, laughing, running cars. It was fun. But
how'd you get any work done?
Oh, I had to stay out of the way, and
Well, yeah, as for the last 2 years, hopefully things start becoming normal in a short amount of time. But
yeah, who knows?
From that particular topic, and ask anybody else. I mean, we can still do show and tell. So if you came in late and have something you want to show and tell, we're currently on Club Corner. So if you have something that happened recently or will happen soon or that you want to promote, feel free to do that now. If you have just something that you want to ask the group, feel free to raise your hand and we'll make sure you get to you. I know that Alan was mentioning something that he wanted to get some opinions on. I don't see anybody else jumping up and down trying to get my attention. Garth, oh, he raised his hand. All right, Garth, you first, and then we'll get to Alan.
I have a question. Okay, it's about putting future wax on your car, on your slot cars. You know, I know nothing about it, and is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? You know,
Sorry, I do it all the time. It works really, really well because it's self-leveling. The trick is not to put too much. Light coats, lots of light coats. It dries in about 15-20 minutes, and use a wide brush so that it dissipates quite nicely, and it works very, very, very well. If you look on my YouTube channel, that 250 Ferrari GTO, the Revell that I put a chassis under, that's all clear coated with Future. So is the Morgan that I did, the Cheetah. I do it on all the cars, and it works really, really, really well.
Are you talking about the front tires or the body?
I'm talking about the body.
Okay.
Body, yeah.
Yeah, it helps protect the decals as well.
Yeah.
So John recommended a wide brush application. Does anybody have any other application tips?
I use a 1-inch wide foam brush. That works very well too. It doesn't have to be a bristled brush.
Okay, so you just paint it on like it's paint.
Yes.
Yeah. But the real trick, Garth, is thin coats. Like, you're gonna put the first thin coat on, and you're gonna think, well, it's not doing anything, but it is, because if you put too much on at once, it actually goes to sort of like the bottom of the
then you have to wick off the runoff.
The drips. Yeah.
So nice light coats, and when you start doing the third and fourth coat, because that's a good idea, just do the high spots, because it's again self-leveling. So you just want to do like the top of the fenders and not necessarily like the bonnet.
So
folks again, or the boot. So that's the best tip I can give you.
Is the airbrush going? So
airbrush will work as well. Yeah. I've never done that because I'm too lazy to bring out the old airbrush for it. But
so
a brush works just as well.
So it protects the tampo printing as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the great thing is,
how durable is it?
Very durable. In fact, what it is, it's liquid acrylic. That's really what it is. But it's got a very, very low viscosity. And
Well,
that's what it's made for floors.
Exactly. I was just going to say, if you think about it, it's a floor wax, so it's very durable because you can walk.
Yeah,
I'm not going to walk on my cars.
I was going to say you can tap dance on your cars. Yeah, in 1/32 scale men, but yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to note that it's not a wax; it's an acrylic. And I was just going to say, it's gone through a variety of naming conventions over the years. It used to just be called Future Floor Polish. Then it was Pledge with Future Shine. What's the current naming convention? Has anybody bought any recently?
I don't know.
I think it's just plain Pledge right now.
Yeah, blame the marketing guys. But when you buy a large bottle, it will last you for years.
Yeah, I bought mine when it was Pledge with Future Shine. But
so that,
do you use it instead of varnish?
All right, let me spotlight Frank here real quick.
Do you use that instead of varnish?
Instead of what?
Instead of varnish, yes.
Yeah. Instead of like a clear lacquer or a clear enamel, this works really, really well. It's very, very tough, easy to apply, and dries very quickly.
And the big thing about it is it doesn't attack anybody's decals.
Right.
Even Pato's decals survive being covered with
and it's
Future.
It's shiny, but not over shiny. I mean, it's not like a proto slot body where you can almost see yourself in it, but it's still pretty shiny on it.
Yeah, it's right. It's not like you're putting clear lacquer over something. Yeah, exactly.
But why would you do it if you can buy varnish for €2 for 20 cars or 50 cars or whatever?
That's a spray can?
Yeah.
Because
it costs nothing. It's wonderful. Matte or high gloss.
Yeah, because Henri, the bottle that Frank showed you, I'm sure he's had that for about 8 years.
And I've already done 40 or 50 cars.
It's not because of the economics of it. It's because of the type of coating that it is. The fact that it's acrylic means that it doesn't attack any kind of decal. Sometimes the spray types will attack the decals.
Yeah, okay.
So when you,
and if you get it anywhere, it's really easy to clean up because you can clean it up with water.
And if you're painting it on with a brush, you clean the brush with water.
Before
so do you, if you're,
And I have known people who actually took a little Tupperware tub, set their body on top of something inside the tub, and literally poured the future wax over the body and let it coat it, and then just clean off the drips at the bottom.
Okay.
Yep. Well, Frank, that's a trick that military modelers use for aircraft canopies.
There you go.
Yeah, use it all the time. That's where I kind of cottoned on.
So when you apply it, do you keep it away from the windows?
Oh no.
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 So you put it on the windows too?
Yeah.
The whole car.
So it's just and put it on the whole thing.
Yep.
And even if you have a convertible car or an open cockpit car, you can do the drivers, but I tend not to because I like to see the flat colors I use on the drivers.
But to your point, Frank, if it's an open car, you can do the helmet because inevitably it'll run upside down and skid on the helmet. So that I always do the top of the helmet.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, nice tip also.
Great
Yeah,
question, Garth.
I've seen people use the future and put a coat of that and then spray with a clear over the top of that if they're worried about the decals that they're using.
Just to use.
It's not a very good aperitif, if everyone's wondering. So there you go.
Smells nice though.
Yeah, that's about the only thing. It doesn't taste very good. Yeah.
I would worry. Reason why I'm asking is, does it protect your cars from your hands? You know, like getting, you know, the oil on your hands on your tampo printing and whatever.
It's acrylic. It's going to protect from pretty much everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any other tips for Garth before we move on? All right. Sounds like we're ready to move on, and we can always swing back on that if necessary. Dewan, you've got your hand up. What would you like to talk about or ask about?
I was looking for some sources for models. Well, not really. Well, yeah, real rare vehicles that I want to have modeled. And I know there's some 3D printing companies and things like that. I'm just trying to see if there's some sources that could be suggested on. I mean, they're just conventional old cars, 1963. Like you can find a 1963 Impala, but it's always the SS two-door. I want the four-door. And then things like the 69 Caprice Classic and the 76 Caprice Classics. Those all three of those Chevys. I'm trying to find those vehicles, which I never saw any Revell or any other type of kits, especially because they're passenger cars. They're not typical race cars. So does anyone know a source that might have where I might be able to get something like that?
The only thing that comes to my mind, I mean, because obviously you're looking for something that is not commonplace in the modeling world already. There's no diagram for it, really. There's no model kits for it. So and you mentioned 3D printing. So the first thing that pops into my mind is there is a site that is basically just car bodies and chassis and things like that, and it has a lot of obscure stuff, and it's to be 3D printed. Like you pay them a few bucks for the file, and then you go print it. I'm blanking on the name of the site because I rarely use it. I'm hoping that maybe Henry or Brian or somebody else who has been enjoying printing bodies and things like that might know what site I'm talking about. Their thumbnails are always blue. They're
Shapeways?
No. It's you go and download the file, not order a print.
Oh, I got you.
So it's like, I think the car or something like that, or automobile or something like that is in.
It's a pity Steve isn't on anymore. He would probably remember.
Oh yeah, he was on earlier. Yeah, either Steve or I thought I saw Brian on earlier. Looks like he dipped out as well. But I'll try to find that. If if nobody remembers what I'm talking about, and
I remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. But you think I can remember what the name is? I don't.
But it
I'm
is
looking.
it is challenging though, because you're right. A lot of model companies never made real 4-doors of anything really, right?
Sometimes the dealers had
Yes, they used to.
models. You
Yeah, they
might
used
be able to get somebody to make
Yeah,
one
promo.
up of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get some, if you find some schnook who'll make a mold for, oh, never mind.
That schnook's got to finish a Porsche first before.
Yeah,
and a,
yeah. Oh,
and a
it is.
Chaparral 2G, as I recall.
Exactly.
Yes.
The
And
rubber
an
has,
RSK.
you know what? I should have taken a picture, but I made a run out to my my sculpture supply folks, and oh boy.
Kelly found it. All right.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So yeah. My wife's real happy right now. She's like, "Wow, what's this? Oh, this is good." Yeah. So yeah, rubber's being mixed.
All right. So this is the shop that I was thinking about. 3D.
That's the one.
What was the name of the car you were looking for, Dewan? Impala?
Yeah, it's a 1963 Chevy Impala 4-door, a 1969 Chevy Caprice Classic.
There's a 62.
Well, that's probably close enough.
No, there's a 64. There's a 64 that might be close. No.
It's a 2-door, 64.
Yeah, the 2-doors you find them all over the place. They use those for lowriders.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm having some maintenance done at my house.
Are these cars that you've owned, Dewan?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
my parents
understand.
owned. That's correct.
Yeah, so this is the side I was thinking about. Obviously, even they don't have that particular, the 4-doors. These are all 2-doors, and not the same year. So, but I don't know where this guy is, finding these. It might be worth going here and contacting them and saying, hey, I'm interested in these models, and maybe they'll say, oh, okay, wherever.
We'll make one.
Well, you should be able to manipulate the files, couldn't you?
I mean, if you have the skill to do it, but at that point, you could just do it, right? I mean,
Yeah, true enough. But I mean, he could take an existing file for one of the cars that's already there and change the body portion and the top portions that are needed for that.
Sure,
instead of the whole car.
Assuming that whoever runs that site is doing the modeling and not getting them from video games or something, I'm sure that's what they'll do.
And it just needs to be, the 5-foot rule.
Yeah, 5-foot rule.
it's not like it's going to be no ribbon counting here.
I'll put that in the description so you can hit the link later on if you don't want to do it right now, or get back to it by going to episode 88 and hitting the links in the description. And anybody else who's watching, hit the links there and look. And yeah, I guess send them a contact and say, hey, can you do these?
The nice part about that site is that when they do it, it's basically just the body shell. So it's absolutely ideal for us.
Okay.
As slot car racers, you're not it's not giving you all the interior molding and all of that.
Yeah, some of the models have a bunch of stuff like that, but a lot of them is just the body. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, good stuff. And I don't see anybody else raising their virtual or real hand. So, Alan, what did you want to get the group's opinion on?
Okay. Well, I've got 2 things tonight or today. Keep forgetting it's afternoon for you guys. I've been preparing this car, which is a Ferrari 458 Black Arrow. And this is a rebodied version of the car that me and the team did really well with a few months back. The body shell is a Black Arrow 458. I haven't put the lights in or anything yet. The decals are from a company called Le Monde Decals in Spain. It's on eBay with a user ID Jimper links, and it works really well. The body was pre-colored by Black Arrow, so I bought it ready painted red. That saves all the color matching issues. And I didn't find any problems putting these decals on, even though the decals are not designed to be on this car. The upgrades to this car since we last raced it, and one was that we now got the orange chassis, which makes it a little more flexible, so that should work even better than the previous car. And the upgraded B2 chip. So that should be an improvement as well. Now I can put the most recent firmware on it. So the whole car's coming together quite nicely, built around a car that's been proven and worked before. So that's my little thing that I've been spending this week doing. That's the thing, getting the antenna through that little hole there. Right.
Alan, did you say that the orange chassis is more flexible than the stock chassis?
Yes.
Okay.
They list it as Naranja because it's on the Black Arrow site in Spanish, because they're a Spanish company. Interestingly enough, the chassis, let me see if I can point it out here. It has this aperture here to put a grub screw in. And that grub screw can lock together these two halves of the chassis if you want to restrict the flex. So there are lots of little things on Black Arrow that really make me think I'm really starting to like this manufacturer a lot. So yes, the orange is just listed as Naranja. There's no explanation as to what it is, but it is slightly softer. If you're racing on plastic track, it seems to be the way to go. Flexible wing as well, which is what you need for endurance racing. So.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting, because I've just been putting one together as well, and the kit that I got had both chassis in it, and so I thought, well, maybe this is a stiffer chassis, but if it's more flexible, that's not going to help me if I'm running on wood. So I'm going to probably change out again.
No, won't help you if you're on wood using the softer chassis. But I don't race this on wood, so I don't know. So, but the general consensus seems to be that harder chassis are required for wood. So, if that's what you're building, that's what I suggest you do.
Yeah, I was surprised by a Christmas gift from Electric Dreams, and so it's that silver Momo. It's really difficult with the light. There we go. How's that? It's a silver car with the Momo decals on it, which also who was it who was asking about the clear? It's all done already. I've done this. I've coated this one with the Future, and it went over the decals really nice.
Looks good.
Cool. The build I showed you, the red one, the 2012 winner, that's got a Lexan interior, and it's also got the Lexan crystal work on. So it's a really lightweight car, and I fully expect to have to load it up with loads of tungsten putty to be allowed to race it. But that's good because it keeps the weight low. Anyway, on to. Sorry, did someone mention something?
Yeah, I have a question, Alan. I sent you a PM. Do you ever use the body float adjustment screws? And I don't know that the Black Arrow has it.
Yes, they do. Black Arrow do have them, and different ones have different positioning. So one on the Ferrari, there are two right here at the back of the chassis, and those engage into this little piece. I have a bit of a problem showing you this, but this little fork here, they engage onto that little fork, which is actually part of the single unit that makes the exhaust pipes at the back. So yes, but this particular car only has two float adjusters on the body, and the other cars have more. Now this one I struggled with the other one because there are also float points that are on here, little tabs that run there, come out from the body, and I've chopped those off because they have a tendency to wrap underneath the body shell. So, sorry, underneath the chassis. So if the chassis compresses and the body comes over, they catch, and then the body won't release. So I chopped those off. But I do feel as though the front end of the car could do with some adjusters, and the side of the car could do with some adjusters. And those are the kind of things I play with that I think really make a difference.
Okay,
Does that
so
answer your question?
well, so that my follow-up question is, when you adjust those, what results do you see? How do you adjust them? And obviously we're running on wood track, so I've messed with them a little bit, but I can't say that I've seen a consistent difference or help or minus.
Yeah, you have to keep in the same way as if you're diligently checking everything you do with your car preparation, you should be diligently recording the screw tightnesses and slacknesses every time you put a car on the track, so that you've got a record saying this is half a turn loose, this is a turn loose. You have to do that with the body float as well, to be able to build a record of what works and what doesn't. What I would say is, when you're using those float adjusters, the grub screws on the corners of the chassis generally, is that you don't put them up to the same height from the chassis. You drop the body on and then you raise those adjusters up until all four are touching, irrespective of whether they are the same height from the chassis or not. And that way you drop it on and then you put the body screws in later, and then you adjust the body screws against those screws that you've set up as a set screws or grub screws. It really does make a difference to float the body. It makes a big difference to make that body float square and true, and without catching on anything. You know, it makes the whole thing float better.
That's kind of what I wanted to know was, because obviously the way I've been doing it, I just put the body screws in loose and then I tweak the float to, keep the front from rubbing or whatever it is. That's what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. The set screws, the grub screws, adjust those up to the body first from the chassis, and then put your body screws in or tighten your body screws up to get the floaters you want. The chassis should sit, the body should sit completely flat on those ideally four screws. That's what you're looking for.
Then what kind of benefit do you see from it, having it set properly?
The cars are more predictable. It's the thing that I must have when I set up a car. I want it to talk to me as I'm driving it around. So I can't stand magnet racing because it's guesswork. You push it, push it, push it, and then you've crippled someone in the far corner of the room. With non-magnet racing, and this is true of wood racing too, is that what you're really looking for is the car to be giving you feedback. If you're opening the throttle just a bit too early on corner exit, you'll get a little fishtailing going on, and you'll know not to do that. If you enter a corner a bit too fast, the back end starts to slide out a little bit, and you'll know to back off a little bit. Now, what I'm looking for is feedback all the time. When a body is floated properly on set screws on the chassis, I find the feedback is of higher quality. I can read the car better. Okay. All right, let me move on to my technical question. This is probably going to go straight to Dennis, unless Mr. I live next door to Geddy Lee Walker is online. I'm sure he would have an opinion. Let's just get some terminology down. Typical slot car guide. At the bottom, you've got the blade, and at the top, you've got the post. Okay, so you've got the post there, and that inserts into the holder, which is here. Let me just put that in.
That's our scale auto one.
That's a scale auto guide, yeah, going into an NSR drop on. And the question I've got has arisen because on plastic tracks, I'm having problems now keeping the car on the track and in the slot on the straights once I start to go above 11 meters per second. So, when you really start to use high power motors, so I'm talking about King 30s, NSR King 30s, Scale Auto Outlaw 35K motors, every track imperfection makes the car struggle to stay in the slot. And when they do pop out of the slot, you've lost all your brakes because the brakes don't contact anymore. Now, I've lots of techniques to deal with this, One of them is braid shaping. So creating a little bit of a curve there so that I don't get a hard, like an anvil attack on the braid edge. That was a tip I got from Lee Green down at Molesey about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's good. And of course, you can always add weight to the front of the car, but that's a kind of a technique of last resort.
But don't you have then at the moment too much grip? But when the cars comes pop out in the front, you have a lot of grip behind.
No, this is not under acceleration. This is not start line D-slot. This is full throttle, 3/4 down the straight, doing the maximum speed the car can do, and it will hit an imperfection and hold. So,
Alan, what braid are you using?
Braid, I typically use NSR race braid 0.2, which is quite a soft braid. So I think I'm doing a lot of the right things, you know, and I will add weight if I have to. But this is
Alan,
the question.
Alan,
Yeah.
those bumps that are throwing you out of the track at top speed on the straight, are they just track imperfections that just need to be resolved in the track?
Well, what I would say is that yes, that's probably true, but I don't go to a club and start telling people how they should prepare their track. If I'm the only one suffering with this, because, you know, I'm going particularly quick, I gear my cars too fast on the straight, then I consider that to be my issue. Now, if everybody's having this issue, then yeah, that's something that has to be dealt with. But if it's just me, and at the moment it is just me, because I'm really pushing the top speed limits of what these motors can do, then I'm not feeling as though I want to be telling anybody that they need to sort their track out. You know?
Alan,
Springs on the front.
Sorry, say that again.
Sorry.
Springs on the front.
Yeah, a rally track, a rally guide is another way to go. But I found that yes, that resolves the issue with the D-slot on the straight line. But rally guides with springs tend to have a bit more slop, which means that the car doesn't sit down as I want at the front, and it doesn't traverse the corners in the mid-track as well. So I'm trying to avoid having to use a sprung guide.
Alan, I'm not trying to be clever here, but perhaps it's too light.
Yeah. No, more is not more when it comes to weight, John. Not doing that.
Are the imperfections that you're worried about, are they just on the rails, or is it the rails and the joint of the track surface itself?
I think it's mainly the rails. But I'll tell you what, let me get on to the question I've got. Okay. When you look at a slot car guide hole, they are always absolutely perpendicular. And that means that the front edge of the guide is always perfectly flat to the track. Something that occurred to me.
No, it doesn't, Alan.
This could be, well, hold on, let me finish. If this could be slightly turned back, okay, so that the guide sits, so that the front edge is slightly higher than the rear edge of the guide base, then that would make a softer attack on the braids. That could be easily achieved. I mean, I think I've seen some of the things Wayne's done where you flatten chassis, Wayne, and you've accidentally dropped the guide holder, which is a disaster. I mean, I think everyone agrees that the front of the guide being, if the angle's like that, that would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, but if you remember, I also foobarred one by trying to tilt it back, and I tilted it back a long, long way.
Yeah. Okay. And what were the results?
Oh, I didn't even build it. It was too far back. It was a fail. But I have done it. I have successfully done it during the bathing process.
When I've been doing research on this, the only company or car maker I've seen that's done anything with this is Ernie Mazzetti, but I can't find any details about that, about what that angle was and how that was done and what the results were. But, you know, I don't see any manufacturer doing this. So
when Ernie was doing it, was he doing it on the MR slot car cars, or
I don't know,
on his 124 scale cars?
This NSR has a drop arm.
Yes.
Did you try that?
Oh, you mean spring the drop arm? Well,
Yeah.
actually,
I
it's
never
not
did
the
it.
NSRs.
I
It's
never
not
did it.
the NSRs I have a problem with. The NSRs traverse the track quite well. It's some of the clunkier, heavier chassis, what did I get? Some 3D printed chassis I've got, and a Skelectric Pro Chassis Ready car that does it, and also some Racer Sideways cars. So anyway, this one I don't even see.
Dennis, on the 124th cars, aren't the guides at 2 degrees?
Well, we always build them that way, but the reason that we build them that way is that because when the car's riding on the track, it has a lot less ground clearance at the front than it does at the rear. So you always kick the nose of the guide up so that it is at least, at worst, horizontal when the car's running on the track. But I think Alan's got the right idea here, that if you kick up the front of the guide by a degree or two, you're going to be able to ride those imperfections a lot better. Because, you know, if everything is purely vertical, then as soon as you have a slight difference in ground clearance front to rear, the nose of the guide's going to be in the wrong position.
Well, Wayne, when you 3D printed that chassis for your last big race, I mean, couldn't he print that chassis with a little up angle on the guide? And same with NSR, we could get a 3D printed, whatever that guide holder is, drop arm. Yeah.
The answer is we did discuss doing that, but the limitations of layer heights and 3D printing is that they don't actually print smooth walls at slight angles. So we chose not to do it. We chose to tease a reamer in the hole to try and get a little bit of that in instead of printing it in.
Well, you could print the hole at an angle and still leave the bottom flat, and then you could sand the bottom as needed.
You can't, Courtney, because if the bottom is flat, then the guide will go to match the bottom. You actually are asking the printer to produce an angle where it lifts the material from the printing surface.
Not if the guide hole's at an angle. It could still come like this.
And then sand the bottom of that guide holder to be at an angle.
I know Alan knows enough people and has enough blackmail material that he could probably get a couple.
I think
the trick, Courtney, the solution is to print a separate guide holder and then stick that guide holder onto the horizontal base plate at an angle.
Yeah, I think that would do the job, Wayne. I mean, that's sort of where I'm thinking for now. That the angles I'm looking at, I'm really thinking that just during this chassis flattening process, I can get a pin that goes through the guide holder and adjust it, and then put necessary spacing underneath so that when the chassis flattening occurs, it will give me that little bit of back tilt. I'm glad to hear that Dennis, that this is not a surprise to people, that this is a process and that some wood track cars are set up with a 1 to 2 degree.
Alan, it's the one secret. It's the one secret we've been trying not to tell you for the last 18 months, my friend.
I will get there, I'll tell you. I will get it all, one way or another. All right, no, that's good, because all I really wanted was an idea as to whether this was even feasible or sensible, or whether anyone had done it. And now that I've straightened a chassis with the slightly tilted back guide holder, I'm going to now try that and see whether that really works and resolves the issue.
Alan, couldn't you take a piece of brass tubing and bush it and then glue the brass tubing in on an angle?
I could. I mean, if I was building brass chassis, yeah, something like that might work. But if you think about it, though, you can't have a regular guide with a vertical post, with an offset post running across a flat plane, because the two just won't happen. It would lift up. It might be an interesting way to self-straighten your guide rather than just have to depend on the guide wiring to straighten the guide. But I don't know that that would be a great idea to have the base of the guide holder and the base of the chassis facing guide not to be on the same plane, which is what you're saying, because if you take that off an
Yeah,
angle,
so you would move the guide on an angle like that. I mean, this is exaggerated.
so yeah, the whole guide, not just the whole guide, not just the guide post, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what I'd want, and I'd do that. I would do that by changing the guide post, sorry, the guide holder, not the guide itself. So
When
yeah,
Alan, when those cars that are bouncing, when you're having this problem that are coming out, are they set to ride with their front wheels on the track, or are the front wheels just off the track?
Generally, they're not, and that's one of the techniques I do. If I think that there's a chance that it's the front wheels lifting the car out, I'll push the car along the track, look at it for the whole length of the straight. And if I see the front wheels move at all, I'll lift the front wheels 1/10 of a millimeter and then do it again.
Because what I'm So what I'm thinking is that, and it goes to the first question I asked about whether the imperfection was in the rails or the track surface. If the imperfection is in the rails, what you want to do is make the car ride on its wheels, front wheels a little more, so that the guide is not as deep in the slot, and so that you have a little bit more space for the braid to spring up and down and accept that little bump that it gets when it goes across that imperfection.
I hadn't thought about that. I will give that some thought and experiment with that, Dennis, because yeah, I think there's definitely some validity in that idea. Definitely. Thanks.
We do that quite a lot on commercial tracks where the braid is bad, where you know that the braid depth varies a lot, or where there are damaged areas. Then we'll tend to raise the guide in the car, let the car run on its front wheels a little bit more, so that you don't have quite as much pressure on the braid, and that tends to settle the car in those kind of situations.
Does that open the question about having a front axle that's loaded on springs, sort of front suspension? Is anyone doing that?
Well,
we don't.
On that, Dave keeps waving his hand at me. Dave, did you have some input on this? Go ahead and unmute yourself and speak your piece. Yeah, you're still muted.
Okay. Alan, you're talking about altering the guide hole. Why can't you just file the bottom of the shoe of the guide itself so you alter the guide? So you're filing a bit from the front where the braids go into the hole on the underside. Wouldn't that have the same effect?
Yeah.
Yes, that would. I'll look at that as well. That will. But yes, yeah, I'll try that. Because that, yeah, if I took a wedge out from the guide.
Correct.
Right here, but if you look at, say, this Scale Auto guide, there's not a lot of meat there.
No, there isn't. No, you're right. But you're talking about absolutely nothing, aren't you?
Yeah. You know, so that's what I'm faced with. But yeah, I mean, maybe, but could be lots of different ways to try and fix it. I mean, for me, this isn't a problem in digital racing because Disca cars just aren't quick enough. I mean, we're not pushing more than 7 meters per second. But whereas analog cars on a long track with great big powerful motors can be pushing 3/4 more top end speed, and that's when you really start to get problems. It's like the sound barrier. It's going to be very difficult to break that, I think.
What track is it? Is it a wood track or?
No, it's the London Slot Car Club track down at Wood Green.
Right.
I think I've posted that on Slot Racer and Slot Forum. It's a big, long Scalextric sport track that's painted with some kind of urethane paint, and we use urethane tires. But it's the longest straight I know of. It's a great big long straight. And by the time I hit 3/4 of the way down that straight, I mean, it's difficult to even track how fast the car is. So yeah, you can imagine plastic track. The plastic track's probably about 10 years old now. So
Right.
it's not perfect by any means.
Alan,
Yeah.
just a suggestion. I think the angle in the guide will probably do it, but if you just put a shim on the backside of the guide to artificially put an angle in it and just test it, it would work on a corner, but just down the straightaway and see if it works. Or just bend it with your hand for a couple laps and see if it helps it. Then you can figure out how to do it correctly. But that would be an easy way to find out if that is the problem.
Could be. Yeah, I'll try that.
We expect a full
Okay.
report.
Karsten had raised his hand earlier. Did you have a question or?
Yeah, you showed us that you are making this dent in front of the braid so that the weight or the attack point of the braid will be very in the front of the guide. And you are talking a lot about how to tilt it. And what I always been taught was that the braid should be set up to be banana shaped at the back end of the guide. That would move the point of contact slightly backward.
Yes, I agree. A banana-shaped braid is right. That's the way to go. But most of the time, I have that first initial attack angle there is almost flat. The initial crimp of the braid is quite, tightly into that corner as it exits the guide braid holder. And what I think is it's slightly better if you leave the very smallest amount of radius at that front end. Otherwise, every imperfection there's nothing to soak up that imperfection. That imperfection just slams straight through the guide, straight to the chassis, and lifts you out of the track.
No, well, actually, the braid would act as a spring because it's supposed to be curved banana shaped at the back end. So the front end would actually be maybe a little bit, a millimeter about the braid, the track braid, because it's the back end that is when you tilt. What's the purpose of tilting the guide other than getting away from having the weight on the front of the guide to having the weight on the back of the guide? And you could do that by shaping your braids.
That's true, but if you use 0.2 millimeter race braid, the NSR stuff I use, which seems to be a really, really good braid, after you've raced for about 6 minutes or so, the weight of the car and the impact flattens it all down. So, if you're doing endurance racing, you can't depend on the shape of the braid to do anything like that. But
we do sprint races.
But even for sprint racing, I put the car on the track and I can shape the braids very carefully. After I finish a sprint race and I pick it up, all of the impacts that the car takes during the race flattens the braid down.
Okay.
So it behaves differently at the start and the end. And what I'm trying to get to with this idea of angling the guide is to have something that will last the whole race.
Sure.
So it's consistent.
Alan, I just thought of something. I just thought of something else. When you have the guide, my hand being the guide, can you see me? The braid goes through the guide from the top, and then it makes a 90-degree bend towards the back. And the problem I'm thinking is it's that leading edge of the braid that's hitting something. If you took the hole that goes through the braid where you bend it back in that 90 and put a little chamfer in it, so instead of the braid going like this, it goes kind of gradually down, so it kind of forms kind of an arc instead of a straight 90-degree bend.
That's a good point.
It's a
I'm
nice
looking
idea.
at the scale auto braid.
And that's very
sorry,
simple with a hobby knife. You just take that hole and elongate it on the backside where the braid comes through on the bottom.
There really isn't very much material here to do that with.
No, but
I mean,
you're
I
not
could-
altering that. You're just elongating the hole. So where the braid makes the turn going down into the track, it's not in a straight 90-degree bend. It's maybe like a 45 and then another 45.
Could be. I'll
It'd be
experiment.
real
with that
simple to
as well.
try.
A chamfer that edge.
Yeah, a chamfer on the backside of the braid, the hole in the braid. And real simple to try and might work. Who knows?
Basically, you're moving where the fold is from outside of the guide, inside of the guide, where it's where.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Is
So-
that why they fold around? So a lot of scales use the braid mounted up top, and then it folds completely around the front edge. So it's basically a rounded front edge. Wouldn't that kind of have the same effect?
I'm having trouble visualizing what you're saying, but
like the LMP.
Alan, that's not the part that's relevant, my friend. It's the hole that goes from the shoe up where you poke the braid up the hole. He's on about chamfering the hole, the bottom of the hole. So you've got the whole material thickness right up to where the ferrule goes in.
Yeah, the chamfering is problematic because there isn't very much material there to hack away at. So you're talking about going from a fairly straight edge curve to something that whatever you can get out of an 1/8 of a millimeter of material there, because otherwise you chop into the bottom of the guide, and then you completely lose all the integrity of the guide itself. So I think that's a good idea, but it may need a different guide, a 3D printed guide with that.
well, it's a simple test to see if it works. And if it does,
I
then
just
you're
did it
on
with an
the road.
X-Acto knife on that leading edge of a guide flag.
Did it work?
I haven't put braids in it yet, but I just took my X-Acto knife and just sliced that. Just put a little chamfer on that, and sliced
Yeah,
it off.
almost like you're taking flashing off.
Yeah. Yeah, I just
It
did it
wouldn't
right
take
there.
much.
I think that's actually a pretty good idea, especially because we all have that flat guide syndrome. And if you run any rake in the chassis at all, that chamfer, I think that's a good idea, actually.
Will it work at Electric Dreams?
Tip of the week. Who's going to notice it at Electric Dreams?
There you go. Mike's got one. He's just done. Have a look at that, Alan.
Okay, put that up again. Okay, so a little out of focus, but I think I can see what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the idea, but again, it's just an easy fix that if it works, it's easy. If it doesn't, then we figure out something else.
But again, we got to remember we're talking about Alan's issue.
Yeah.
I don't think has anybody else here had that type of an issue where we would need to camphor our guides, or is that the only one? Poor guy.
I think that's a plastic track thing, probably more or less.
Yeah.
Right.
My cars aren't that fast.
There you
Alan,
go.
have you
Mine neither.
got a front splitter on your cars? Have you got
Plus he's got
air going in the front of
huge
your body
straightaway.
shells?
He's got a huge straightaway too. He's talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to use washing machine motors on slot cars, I don't think.
If they used a washing machine motor, I think the weight would keep the car down. But
Yeah, you think.
Oh, Alan would be worse because you'd have this really high rear pull moment of inertia. You'd be doing wheelies down the track, man.
could be.
That
Then
and his
he'd
clothes
need
would
that
all get
drop
dirty
arm.
too.
What was that, Wayne?
Right.
I say his clothes would all get dirty because the motor's in the car, not in the washing machine.
Well, he is a rocker, right? Supposed to be a dirty hit.
Washing clothes, what's that?
Could it be aerodynamic by any chance at those speeds? Are you getting air underneath the front of the car, or have you got a splitter that could be turned up or something like that?
I've not found a good way to do any aerodynamic testing. I mean, it's a really problematic area. And a lot of people say that aerodynamics plays no part in slot car racing because of the speed and size of the cars. But if that was
I-
true, bluebirds would be bricks. They wouldn't be shaped beautifully like that with wings. They'd just be square bricks.
And
So
we,
there's an
we had,
easily-
I would disagree with the aerodynamics not influencing slot cars. The speed makes a difference.
I was going to say, you may have gotten to the point of speed, Alan, where you've discovered lift instead of ground ground effect.
Yeah.
And a little bump lifts the front end enough, and at that speed, it's coming up.
It's
Oh,
not,
suddenly
it's
you're a
actually- it's something-
Mercedes on the straight at Le Mans.
Well, it's something to consider. I mean, you can buy like very small radio control aircraft that will fly. If it's light enough, it'll fly.
Well, as long as
we had one of the guys at our local track took one of our 32nd scale cars, like an NSR, and pretty good sized track, not a garage track. Put a 32nd scale wing car body on it. Went a second and a half per lap faster.
Yep. I mean, as long as he can keep the nose down, and I think that's the whole point, is that he's trying to keep the car from bumping up enough to let air. I mean, even if the air is causing the final, full D-slot of the car, he's trying to prevent the car from even bumping up enough for that to play a role.
Jim, you didn't tell Chris about this. Maybe that's why he's not here.
He would have had a good opinion about it.
You got a last little bit for us, Frank, because we're running down to the last 3 minutes.
Real quick, I have a question for Jim Rose. Electric Drains Trans Am class. Have you had a chance to study those rules?
I looked at them. There was one, not so much issue, but there was one problem in the rules in that it's Sidewinder only, and the Javelin was in the cars that were available, and the Javelin's not Sidewinder. So I'm
Good
not
point.
sure.
I'll bring that up.
I'm guessing
I'll bring that up to
Javelin's
Marco.
not allowed.
Thank you, Roger Penske.
Probably.
My question to you, though, Jim, is,
Yeah.
and I posed this question once before to the group, rubber tires for Scalextrics or Pioneer. Those rims are so small, I have not been able to find any rubber tires because the OEMs are too hard. They have absolutely.
NSR will fit. There may not be the exact perfect size, but they'll fit fine.
Which will?
NSR. I'm not sure if I use
No.
5206 or 52, because that's what I've got on mine.
The NSR Ultras?
Not Ultras, no, Super Grips.
Are the Super Grips smaller diameter than the Ultras?
No, well, you should be able to get the Ultras just a compound. They make them in the same size. But I'm just using standard NSR tires on my Scalextrics Trans Am cars. They work fine. They fit.
Because I tried this. Okay, thank you. I'll try that. I tried it the other day and they just seemed way too big.
You want to know the ultimate cheater car for that class? Which is what I will bring down there if I come down, if that's one of the races I come down to. Scalextrics 69 Camaro with a Pioneer motor in it.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to end our recording, but we're going to keep chatting. As always, come to a live show. It's a lot of fun. But for now, we're going to wave. Bye-bye.